Okay, well, Mike Rhino is actually judging an event. So he couldn't be here tonight. So he's kind of the face of Lone Tree, even though I'm president. Because frankly, no one wants to see me. It's much nicer to have Mike. So I'm just going to give a couple brief up and coming things that are going on. First thing is there's a Colorado Veterans Project down at Gallery 6, which is like Santa Fe and 8th Avenue or something. It's just off of Santa Fe. And one of our judges, Cliff Lawson, has taken those pictures. In fact, he had a workshop here of taking some portraits, and it's an amazing event. It's actually starts, I believe, tonight and goes through the 18th. So I would suggest maybe even Friday, there'll be a lot of people down there popping in if you can to Gallery 6 and seeing that. We have a number of veterans in our midst too, so it's going to be kind of special to them as well. So that's pretty cool.
Are they open during the day or just evenings?
I do not know.
No.
At any rate, we got a few competitions coming up. The first one's going to be on June 5th, and that's an open one. That'll be our next competition. And then Jessica Veiling will be giving we believe, a presentation on shooting portraits. And that'll be on the 19th of June. In perfect timing for the next competition after this next open one on July 3rd, and that's environmental portraits in high key. So the next one is open, and then the next following one is going to be environmental portraits. And by environmental portraits, it's people in their environment. In other words, firemen next to a fire truck, or a businessman in his office, or a cook in his kitchen, or whatever. So you try to get a little bit of the environment in with the thing. Jessica is well known for portraits, and she might throw out some family stuff, but the same techniques of lighting or not lighting, or will apply towards going in and getting some environmental portraits too. Then, of course, if you hate portraits, just do some high key stuff. Following that, we have the 6th annual scavenger hunt, and it's a little bit different from our normal. And I'm actually going to let Bruce talk about it. Instead of scavenging for items, we're going to be scavenging for topics. And Bruce, why don't you try to explain what that's going to be all about?
Sure. Okay, so this year it's going to be different in that it's going to be a project based. So you're going to get more time. We're going to do it from June 1st to July 21st, I believe, which is Sunday. The images will be due, but you come up with a project and decide what it's going to be, and then you just need to come up with 4 images. That's all we can submit. And then the club will vote on which 4 images represent whatever project that person decided they were doing the best. So we're not going to be, it'll be different because we're not going to be looking at the images on their merit alone. It's going to be on how they tie into your project that you pick. And it's open-ended, so you can pick any project you want. I mean, if you want to do a project on, socks or switches or,
So you're not assigning the project?
No.
Okay.
And that's what I mean. It makes it more challenging because you got to come up with the project, and then you have to come up with the idea and how you represent it in your photographs and then that's how everybody's going to judge. So when the images come through, it's just going to be whoever's name and their project name, and then you give them a score, the 5 or 6 to 10. You look at the images, but the images won't be judged individually.
And they have to be shot between what periods?
June 1st and July 22nd, I believe. Yeah, we're going to miss the program date, which we would normally do to review the images. We're going to have to push it a week because I won't be available for that week that it's we normally do.
We'll have to try to figure out how to judge that one project against another, but I like it. I think it's a brilliant idea because if you ever turn in photos to a magazine or things like that, they'll ask you for a series. They say, what's your series of photos? And you turn in 3, 5, whatever it is. And this is the same thing. It's a, project-based series that tells a story. So it kind of will make you think a little bit, and I think it's really fun. I don't know, but so
Something that stretches outside of our normal.
yeah. By the way, Phil just looked up the times. It looks like after 1 p.m. Gallery 6 opens, and then they close at like 8 o'clock. 7 or 8. Okay, 7.
Thanks, Phil.
For the images on the project, are they all either color or monochrome or either?
Anything you want,
Anything you want.
but you'll be limited to 4 because that's all our system will accommodate.
Okay.
So it's you're really gonna have to compile it down to 4 images to sell your project. So,
Okay, well, I think that's going to be it. Just we have an open competition June 5th. We have a themed competition, environmental portrait and high key, on July 3rd, and then the next one following is another open on August 7th. So let's get Quirino going. Quirino has been a wildlife photographer for a long time. I don't know. I don't have your
5 years.
I don't have your resume in front of me here, but I know that ever since I've joined the club, he's just been showing me spectacular wildlife images, primarily birds, but is probably one of the more difficult wildlife photographer things. You have to be patient, plus anticipate and things like that. So, Quirino?
All right, thank you very much, Dave. First off, I'd like to ask everybody to turn their phone off. Use your cell phones for the remainder of the meeting. Secondly, thank you for coming tonight. The club has done some, this first quarter has done some real awesome presentations with some excellent people. We had Miss Oppheimer come in and do an excellent job on wildlife composition. Beautiful pictures that she's taken. And then next we had Paul Maranowski come in and show pictures, how to have your pictures, wildlife pictures, tell a story. Awesome images from Paul. And then most recently we had Ben Evans come in and show us how to take wonderful pictures of these beautiful hummingbirds. Beautiful shots. So, with having wildlife, several people have asked me, how do you get started in wildlife photography? What do you need? What are your settings? So that's what I'm going to learn with you tonight. And first off, I want to tell you, I don't have a degree in photography. I don't have years and years of experience in photography, but I have a passion. I love the shame that came out of it. It's so much fun. I really love the wildlife photography. And why should we try wildlife photography? For one thing, it gets you out of the house. That's what it does for me. I'm not an inside person. I'm an outside person. I look at my house as a base camp where I just come and eat and sleep and then I'm gone. So this is an ideal way to get you outside. If you like being outside, wildlife photography will get you out there. Secondly, I call myself an urban wildlife photographer. I usually take my pictures within a 25-mile radius of downtown Denver. So I take pictures here. You're not going to go see different parts of town that you've never seen before. I've been out with people who've lived here their entire lives, and they see parts of Denver they've never seen before. Number 2, is exercise. When you do wildlife photography, you can walk 10 miles a day, 20 miles a day, or 0 miles a day, and still get wildlife photography without even walking.
Also, get to experience the outdoors. If any of you have had pets, you know that your pets have personalities. The same thing applies to the animals that are out there. They all got personalities. They're all interacting with each other, interacting with other species. And it's pretty hilarious sometimes to see how they interact with each other. Well, you know, that's a lot on YouTube is therapy. Many people have put out YouTube videos saying that wildlife photography is kind of turning their life around. They've been going through a hard time in their life. They took up wildlife photography and just going outside, going by yourself, enjoying the wilderness. It's really good therapy. It's great. Going out there, I love going out there. That's kind of therapy. What I want to talk about, how do we get started in wildlife photography? So we have special equipment. Are the sounds different? How do you plan to see these different animals? Location, like I said, I don't have enough wildlife photographer. 25 miles from the center of Denver. That's as far as I go. Then we're going to talk about editing at the end. The equipment, we're talking about camera, lenses, possibly a tripod, and a few extra things. We're going to talk about my equipment. I started off with the Canon 7D. This was my first camera. And the reason I started with this camera was I was new to this hobby. I've never done it before. And I didn't want to spend a lot of money and buy all this new equipment and then find out that I didn't like it. It's not like it hasn't happened in the past, but I wasn't going to let it happen this time. So all my research pointed me to this camera here, the Canon 7D Mark II. Excellent camera. It has a crop sensor camera. It's got a 1.6 crop sensor image sensor. Shoots 10 frames a second. It's a 20 megapixel camera. You can buy these still brand new for about $1,400. We can get one for about $300 used. I bought a used one for about $400. And like I said, many great photographers have used this camera to make some awesome images. And I thought,
Why can't I for that price? Second camera I purchased was a Canon 90D. And same thing, it's a crop sensor camera, except this one's a 32 megapixel camera. And that's the reason I went to this camera. With my 20 megapixel camera on my other Canon, every time you do wildlife photography, you're going to be cropping. It's very rare that you don't crop. So you're going to lose some quality as you crop down. So that's why I went with a 32 megapixel camera. But now, with the new software they have, even if you have a 20 megapixel camera, there's software now that even though you cropped it down, it brings it back. So the megapixels are not a problem anymore. There's software that'll take care of that. But this is an excellent camera too for wildlife, and also does an excellent job of video too. And this is my latest purchase, which I purchased in January. It's the Canon R5. This one's a 45 megapixel camera, 12 to 20 frames a second. But the reason I went to this camera was for the animal tracking. This camera will track the eye of an animal. As long as he's in my frame and I have it first focused on his eye, it'll stay focused on his eye the entire time. Unbelievable. Where my other cameras, I had to keep that focus point right on the animal the entire time. I couldn't lose him. Now I just got to keep him in the viewfinder. Very easy. And this camera here, you can get them for about $3,400 new. And you can get them for about $1,000 used. And this camera is about 4 years old. Excellent camera. I love this camera. And if you're gonna spend some money on wildlife photography, the place where you should spend your money is on your lens. When I purchased that 7D Mark II, all the information pointed to this lens right here, a 100 to 400 Canon zoom. And they were right. This is an awesome lens with that, all three of those cameras. Beautiful lens, takes excellent pictures. But like I said, if you're gonna spend money, this is the place where you should spend your money, on the lens and not the camera. And you can buy a brand new one of these lenses for $2,400, or you can get a used one for about $700. Also, you can purchase a teleconverter, which will kick it up to a 560 millimeter lens. The only problem when you add a teleconverter, now you lose your f-stop. You've gone from an f6 to an f8 with this stop. And for these teleconverters, you can get it for $100 or a $400 one for a new one. But the minimum size lens that I would get if you're doing wildlife photography is a 300 millimeter lens. Tripods. You know, tripods they're nice to have. They're not really a necessity, but if you don't mind lugging around that 3.5 pound lens with your camera, then you can do without the tripod. But I like the tripod because I go to certain places where the birds are just flying in or they're just hanging out. So I just find a place to sit down, set up my tripod, and I just stay there. Spend the day sitting there with my tripod. It's nice to have. It's not a necessity, but very nice to have. Some other items I take with me when I'm out there, a small folding chair. I take a gardening pad in case I want to sit down for a while, take some photos. Knee pads if I'm going to be on my knees quite a bit. Plastic sheathing. I usually go to Home Depot and I'll get a 25 or 30 foot roll of thin plastic sheathing, and I cut it off into about 5 or 6 foot lengths, and then I fold them up and put them in the back of my car. So when I'm out at the lake or at the river and I want to lay down on the ground and I don't want to get covered in goose poop, I just lay out this plastic sheet and I take pictures from there. And I just drag it around, and then at the end of the day, just throw it away. And then I bring some water and some snacks. Any questions on the equipment that you need? Nothing special, right? Just the only thing I recommend would be a nice lens. You can use any camera.
There's the last camera you mentioned, a mirrorless camera.
It's a mirrorless camera, yes. Mhm. Very nice camera. No questions on equipment? Another one.
Nothing online.
Nothing online, okay. Okay, now that we got our equipment now, what are the settings gonna be for wildlife photography? So some of the important settings is AF servo settings, your shutter speed, what your aperture is gonna be, your ISO, different camera shooting modes, and an important one, exposure compensation. On a Canon camera, it's called AF servo. And what it is basically is continuous autofocus. So if I focus on an animal and he takes off running, that animal will stay in, the camera will keep him in focus the entire time. But if you did single shot, you do the single shot, it focuses, then after he moves, you have to take another focus again. So if you're gonna do animals that are moving, change to AF servo. In Nikon, it's auto servo AF. Sony, it's continuous AF. And then there's focus points on your camera. Many different focus points. I just use 2 of them, two settings. I use a single focus point when I'm looking at an individual animal. And then for birds in flight, I use a 9-point focus system. And I have it set up on my camera where I could switch between the 2 quickly. So with the 9-point, if the bird is in the air or the animal's in the air, and you got a pretty clear background, you're gonna have pretty good luck getting them with at least one of those 9 spots there. So it's easier to get them in focus with this 9-spot system than trying to get them with a single spot. So those are the 2 focus point settings I have on my camera. Another thing that I changed on my camera is back button focus. How many people use back button focus? Few. Well, I like to use back button focus here with my Canon R5, and I have 2 back button focuses. The focus on the left side focuses the single point focus. So if I see an animal where I can't really see his eye, or I can't get zoomed in on his eye, I'll use the single point focus. And I get the animal in focus. If I can see his eye, then I go over to the left, there to the right, and I use that button. That button is the eye focus. So when I push that button, now I'm switching to eye focus. If his eye is available, his eye will be in focus the entire time. So everything's done by back button focus. The front button is only for taking the pictures and setting the exposure. Shutter speed. What should our shutter speed be when we're taking wildlife photography? Well, a simple rule of thumb, like for my lens, I got a 400 millimeter lens. It's 2 times the focal length. So 2 times 400 is 800 shutter speed. That's what my minimum shutter speed would be for my lens, 800. And another little rule of thumb to remember when you're out there, the bigger the object is in your viewfinder, the lower your shutter speed could be. So for me, I see this big eagle in my viewfinder. I know I can stay at about 800, my minimum shutter speed. And it's good too when you're seeing those animals like this. When they're flying around, take a few shots, take a look, see if it's good, raise it up a little bit, take a few shots to 1,000. You know, play with it back and forth and see what you get. But for my lens, 800 works perfect for these large birds like eagles, sandhill cranes, great blue herons, or large hawks. So remember, the larger they are in your viewfinder, the slower your shutter speed could be. The opposite, the smaller they are in your viewfinder, the faster your shutter speed should be. So they were looking at from 1,000 to 3,200 because these little guys are moving quick. So you're going to need more speed. Aperture, usually I keep it at 5.6 on my 100 to 400. And if I, you know, and you're usually doing that because you want a nice soft background. But you can still get a nice soft background even if you're at f8, even if you're at f13. It depends on how far the background is away from your subject. If it's close, you're not going to get that unless you play around in Lightroom, and you can do that. You can make the background blurry. So I usually keep it at 5.6. And like I said, when I use a teleconverter, it changes it to 5.8, and I'm always checking the background. And if you want 2 animals close together, and you want them both in focus, then you will change your aperture to about 13 or 14. And that way you get both the animals in focus. And like I said, if you're looking for that blurred effect in the background, there's other ways you can get it. ISO, I just leave it auto. I don't touch ISO. Shooting mode, I shoot in manual mode all the time. I know some people that shoot in aperture priority, but I don't see how that would work if the animal starts moving, because you're just controlling the aperture and not the speed. So if you stay in manual, you control the speed all the time. That, for me, that's a better mode to control your camera with. Another one that you should remember and know how to use in your camera is exposure compensation. One of the mistakes I've made many times when I was starting to take pictures, I would see these birds flying across the sky and look up, take several pictures, and when I got home, they're all dark. Well, it's because the camera's picking up the bright sky background and making your birds dark. So I have it set up on my camera now where just with the flick of a button, I can flick my exposure compensation. So if I see some birds flying over, I'll kick it up one stop, maybe two, take some pictures. Now the birds come in, they're not dark anymore, they're full of light. So if they're, like I said, in the air, you probably have to play with your exposure compensation. The other thing too, this isn't camera setting, but this is how to, your camera angle. You remember when we're taking pictures of animals, it's like a portrait, you know, we want to see their eyes, we want to see their face. You know, we want to get low to the ground with them. You know, one of the mistakes I've made when I was starting, I see a beautiful bird in a tree, I'd run underneath him and take 40 or 50 pictures. Had 40 or 50 pictures of his belly. Not good. Another thing too, don't take pictures of their butts. Remember, we want their face, we want their eyes. And I have the same habit, you know, I see some beautiful birds, I just start snapping away. But one thing I've learned though, when you do take pictures of these animals, instead of taking 60 pictures of the bird in the same position, take a few pictures, stop, step to the side, to the left, take a few pictures there. What's the background? Go to the right, take a few pictures that way. What's the background look like? Get lower, take a few pictures. Get higher, take a few pictures. I would come home with 60 pictures of the bird in the same position. This way, if you move around a little bit while you're taking your shots, you'll have many different angles of the same bird. And you'll come walk away with way more pictures than that one bird in the same position. Any questions on settings? Crystal clear? All right. Crystal clear. Okay, little quick quiz though. So if you have an object that's big in your viewfinder, what's your shutter speed going to be? 800 or lower, right? You can use a lower shutter speed. Small, if you small in your viewfinder, higher shutter speed. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, we got our equipment. We got the settings on our camera set up. Where do we find it? Where do we find these animals at? You can find them in your backyard. I envy you folks who have a backyard. Backyard, state parks. We got 2 state parks in the city limits here. River walks. There's river walks that go from Chatfield Lake, Cherry Creek Dam, all the way to downtown and all the way to Brighton. So miles and miles of river walks. Rocky Mountain Arsenal, awesome place to go see animals. City parks, you'd be amazed what you're going to see at the city parks. And resources that you can use is, the one I use every single day is eBird. I'm on eBird every day. Another neat resource for you, National Audubon Society.
Could you explain what eBird is?
eBird, I'm gonna get to it here, and I'll show you what it is, okay? Okay, and what I'm showing you here is, like I said, it's within a 25-mile radius of downtown Denver. You don't have to drive to the other side of Colorado or the other end of the earth. All of these things are here. And 95% of the photos you see in my slideshow come from this area here. There's so many animals here. It's unbelievable. Like I said, I envy you folks who have a backyard. You know, this is by far the easiest way to start taking pictures of wildlife. You know, Ben Evans, what an awesome job in his backyard doing hummingbirds. You know, all you gotta do back in your backyard, install a feeder. You can put any kind of backdrop that you have, set you up a chair, a tripod, a cup of coffee. You got it made. You guys with a backyard, right? You got it made. State parks, another great place to go. And we got two of them here. We got Cherry Creek and we got Chatfield. You know, if you go there on a daily basis, it's $10 a day to go in there. If you bought an annual pass, it's $80. But when you renew your license, the Keep Colorado Wild Pass is only $30. And you can go to the city park anytime you want. Yeah, I go to, like I said, Cherry Creek and Chatfield, I always see deer and beaver and eagles and, yeah, there's just so many things here. So next time you renew your car, get that, Keep Colorado Wild Pass. River walks. There's so many river walks throughout Denver here. And like I said, these trails go for miles and miles, and they're filled with birds. Birds, waterfowl. I mean, you see some of the most amazing animals in all these creeks. And they're within a 25-mile radius of downtown Denver. Rocky Mountain Arsenal. What an awesome place to go. There they got bison, eagles, coyote, numerous different birds, waterfowl. There's lakes there, owls. So many different animals there. And the nice part about it is you drive through like 3/4 of it. So, you know, if you see something that you didn't see before, you drive around again. There's no limit on how many times you can drive around. But yeah, amazing things. And the animals come right up to you. City parks. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful city parks here. There's so many animals and birds in all these city parks. This guy here, he's a black-headed black-crowned night heron. Just this past week, there was 150 of them at Washington Park. And probably another 30 or 40 snowy egrets just hanging out there. But all these different animals at the city parks. Like I said, you don't have to travel far. National Audubon Society, what an awesome resource. For $25, it's $25 a year to join. And what they do is they have guided tours like twice a month that takes you throughout town to different streams and ponds. And like I said, they'll take you to spots that you've never been before. You didn't even know these ponds were there. And it's kind of interesting when you hang out with these people, you know, it's when you go with the tour, it's divided into two groups. The front group is the bird people, and they got their pens, pencils, and notebooks, binoculars, and their telescopes. And at the other end is the photographers. And when they're doing their tours, guys in the front are moving fast, quickly. The photographers in the back are dragging everybody, slowing everybody down. But awesome resource if you want to go out and see birds, because these guys, they know their birds. They'll hear a bird and tell you what it is. Unbelievable. eBird. This is what I was telling you about. This is the one I go to every day. It's an organization, yes, put on by Cornell University. And this is the website here. It's ebird.org. And what they do here, there's hundreds and thousands of volunteers throughout the world, not just the US, the world, that go out every single day to every stream and lake and pond, and they count every bird that's there. Then they come home and they enter all that data into this eBird site. So the way I use this thing is I go up here to the right-hand corner where it says Explore. You see that right here? I click on Explore. Then it shows you these two screens here. One important screen here, you see on the bottom right there where it says bar chart? Well, you can use that bar chart. You can click on that. And if you're looking for a specific bird and you want to know when he's going to be here, you click on this bar chart and you start typing in the information, the location, the time of the year, and it'll tell you when that bird's going to be here and when he's seen the most. Pretty cool. So what I do here is I go up here where it says explore regions. And I'll just type in Denver. You see Denver comes up there. Okay, now you get to this area here, and I usually don't read through all this. I don't want to see what birds have been found or. But there is some cool, look at this bird that was just found. Here in the Denver area. But anyway, I just go up here and I go up to the right-hand corner. You see this where it says map? I go here where it says map. See, now it gives us a map of Denver. Okay. And I live out here in Lone Tree. So usually I go to either Chatfield or I go to Cherry Creek. So I go over here at Cherry Creek and you see that red dot over Cherry Creek? I'll click on that dot. And see, this is the checklist. 11,000 people have submitted entries for Cherry Creek alone. Then I view details. And see, then I go here to the checklist. See where it says checklist here? I click on checklist. There's 67 checklists for this month. And I look at the top one here. Candace went out at 7 a.m., 7:50 this morning. She spent 3 hours, 10 minutes looking, and she observed 50 birds. So these are all the birds that she saw at Cherry Creek. So what I do is I go through here and I look down and I say, well, okay, this certain bird's been hanging out here pretty regularly. So there's a good chance I'm going to see him if I go. And what's nice, see, you have all these birds here, and then you can see what they look like. You just click on them and it gives you an idea what these guys look like. This guy's at Cherry Creek right now. They saw 11 of these guys today at Cherry Creek.
Did they tell you where in the park they saw them?
Some do. Like you see right here, number 7 says eating picnic trash in East Shades. So they'll tell you about, and then they'll also tell you a breeding pair. Black cap chickadees, they're breeding. Great blue heron, breeding behavior. Carrying food. See Bonaparte's gull spotted near the marina. So it does tell you, sometimes they do. Sometimes they'll tell you where they saw them at and sometimes they don't. But like I said, if you just go through here, through these checklists, and this is one of the checklists here. See, there's 2 people that went out today on the 15th. And a lot of times I just go and I compare the 2. What did they both see? See, and they kind of seen the same thing. So this is my go-to when I'm looking for birds. When I want to find out where they're hanging out, I go to eBird. Any questions on eBird? Yeah, it gives you a map of the whole. It actually gives you a map of the whole world. And you just go through here and pick where you want to go. It'll tell you exactly what's there.
Does eBird cost?
No, it's free.
It's free? Okay.
Yeah, free. A lot of times, I go out to Lakewood to Belmar Park. Let's see what was at Belmar Park today.
And did you say this was international as well?
Yes, you can go, I can go to any country and do exactly what I'm doing here. Okay, and see what birds are coming up. And see, this is Belmar Park, the 15th today. See what they saw. See, and then these people wrote down what they saw at Belmar Park. So it gives you a good idea of where the birds are at and what you're looking for. Any question on eBird or any of the places where to look for them?
The Audubon Society, is it the national or the Denver?
It's a Denver one, the local one.
Okay.
Yeah, great resources, eBird. There's also another place too. I think it's called Front Range Birding. It's off of 470 and Wadsworth there, I believe. Same thing. They do monthly tours over there. Awesome place to go. Okay, now, where to look for, where and when, you know, we know there's birds out there. We know there's all these animals out there, but when are they gonna be there? Are they there every day? Will they only come at a certain time? Well, some animals only come at a certain time. And see, remember I told you, don't take pictures of their butts? What did I do here? Took a picture of their butt. But the only reason I took a picture of this one is because one of them was smart enough to ride her mom's back. Everybody else has to swim. Okay, if we're looking for eagles, January through March, they're visiting here. You know, we have some pairs that mate and stay here year round at Bar Lake, Chatfield, Cherry Creek. But if you want to see a lot of eagles from January to March, and usually they you'll see them all over town, but usually they hang out around Bar Lake. They like to fish up there for some reason. And another reason they like to be at Bar Lake is because 7 miles north of Bar Lake is the wildlife sanctuary. And the way they feed the wild animals there at the sanctuary is they have these frozen hamburger patties. They're about 10 inches across and about 3 inches thick. So they throw these frozen hamburger patties into the bins of these wild animals there. And the eagles found out that's an easy way to get some food. So now you drive up to the wildlife sanctuary, and I was there once and I counted 61 eagles in one little area eating those hamburger patties.
Was that in the winter?
From January to March.
Okay.
Yeah, they're there from January. There are just tons of them up there. And they just go up there and eat the free food. But they do like to come when Bar Lake is not frozen, they like to hang out there because they like to fish. But if there's not much fishing, then they eat at the wildlife sanctuary. So January to March, tons of eagles come in. Bison, you see them year round here. You know, I see them all the time at Rocky Mountain Arsenal and up here at Daniels Park.
Mhm.
And right now, their calves are being born. So now it's time to get out there and start looking for them. You want to see them with their babies. Birds and waterfowl. Right now is the time. All the males are dressed in their finest. I always say the males are dressed in drag. They got all their makeup on, their finest clothes. They're dressed to the T. So if you want to go see good looking birds right now is the time. And then right now too is when all the hatchlings are starting to appear. So I've already seen a bunch of geese with their little ones, and pretty soon you're gonna start seeing these other ones coming out. And what's nice is when the hatchlings are born, you know they're gonna stay there for at least a week where they're at. They're not gonna fly anywhere. It takes about a week for them to get grown up enough to fly. So you got a week where you can just watch them, take photographs of them. So right now is the time to get out there. Elk, I see elk at Chatfield quite a bit, Daniels Park. And their calves are being born from May to mid-June. So within these next couple of months here, it's a good time to see some baby elk hanging out with their mamas. Bighorn sheep. Close place, Waterton Canyon. I'd say 7 out of 10 times I go up there, I see bighorn sheep. They're there all the time. And like I said, right now, the young are being born, so it's a perfect time to get up there. See, here's a little one with his mamas, and this is from Waterton Canyon. And then if you want to hear them butting heads, go up there in October to early November, and you'll see them and hear them butt heads up there. I was up there one time before I knew that they were in their rut, and I thought somebody was hunting up there, but it sounded like a rifle. And that was just them hitting their heads, butting heads. So Waterton Canyon, it's only 6 miles to the top, 6 miles back. Nice place to see these animals. Turkey. I see turkey all the time here at Daniels Park. I see them over at Chatfield Lake. Same thing. Right now, these guys are are all dressed up, ready to go, ready to dance. They got all their finest clothes on, all their makeup on. Right now's the time to get out and start taking pictures. And the young ones should be coming here pretty soon too. Deer, you see them year round. They're everywhere. You know, I see them at Cherry Creek all the time, Chatfield, Rocky Mountain Arsenal. And the weird thing, I was at a cemetery in the middle of town and I ran into a herd of 6 of them at the cemetery. I don't know how in the world they got there. I don't know if they had family there or what, but I don't know what they were doing in the middle of town. But yeah, you'll see these guys all the time. Great blue heron. What a beautiful bird to take a picture of. It's got a wingspan of about 5 to 6 feet wide. Huge bird. Same thing right now is the prime time. They're in their prime colors. They're mating right now. The ones we've been watching down in Castle Rock, I think their young ones should probably be ready, almost ready to fly now. But it's amazing. Their young ones will grow to almost the same size as the adults. Unbelievable. But beautiful bird, beautiful bird. So if you see this in your viewfinder, what's your shutter speed gonna be? The 800 or slow, right? We don't need a fast shutter speed for this big guy, right? Because he's just slowly cruising along. And best time to view wildlife. You know, wildlife have certain habits when they come out. So they like coming out early in the morning. They'll come out, they'll eat, play around, and after a couple hours, they're done for the day. You won't see them anymore. They'll sleep until late afternoon, and then late afternoon, there they get up again, they'll eat, walk around, and then by dark, they're back to bed. But you'll see the males, see, this is a male who's in breeding season, they're busy all day long. They don't sleep. They're running around all day long looking for females. And if you see some wildlife out there, how do we approach them? Well, first thing, if you're gonna go do wildlife photography, don't wear bright colors. Don't wear bright red, yellow, things that really stand out, because it's intimidating for the animal. Approach from the downwind area, because they smell, see, they know you're there before you even know you're there. Another thing, when you're approaching animals, don't look them in the eye, because that's also intimidating for them. Just kind of look away when you're moving towards them. Also, if you're trying to get closer to an animal, don't walk straight towards them, because that's also intimidating for the animal. Walk slow and at a zigzag to the animal. And another thing I try to emphasize, try not to disturb the animal too much. You know, he doesn't have a Circle K where he can just go down and get him something to eat when he gets hungry. He's gotta hunt every day in order to survive. And I kind of feel bad if I brushed him out of a place where maybe he was gonna hunt for something. You know, that's why I got a telephoto lens. I could be a ways from him and still get good photos. Another place too, take photos from your car. You know, your car makes an excellent blind when you're out there taking photos. Another thing, you don't even need to look for the animals. Have the animals come to you. Many times I'll be at a lake or a river or a pond. I just set up my tripod, my little pad, I sit down, and pretty soon the birds start coming to me. You know, they start waking up in the morning, start doing their pruning. Instead of getting these birds just sitting around, you know, you catch them doing something. You know, they're flying in and out. If they have their chicks, they're going to be hanging out with their chicks. So a lot of times you don't even have to go around and look for them. They'll come to you. As I mentioned before, you go to Rocky Mountain Arsenal, you're photographing them from your car. Here's my dog looking at a buffalo. Or a bison. But I'm the same way, you know, I get impatient when I'm out there. I'm like that buzzard that's saying, you know, I'm not gonna wait for something to die. I'm gonna kill something. And that's how I am with wildlife photography. Sometimes I just can't sit there and wait. I gotta look for something. So I drive and drive and drive around. And you'll get lucky. You'll find some nice stuff. Just like these photos here. All these photos were taken from the front seat of my the driver's seat of my car. Just sitting there. You can do it from your car. You don't even have to get out of your car. Any questions on where to find them, where to find the animals?
You're doing a good job.
Pretty easy, right? They're all over town. All over town. You don't have to go very far. Okay, and then I'm gonna do a little thing about how do I edit my wildlife photos. And we'll start with this guy here. And like I said, when I do my wildlife photos, I just use 3 programs. Lightroom Classic, Adobe Photoshop, and Topaz Photo AI. And then just like I said, when you do wildlife photography, you're gonna crop. You know, I like this little guy here, I like the way he looks, but I don't like the crop. So usually with these little guys, I usually go with a square crop. And usually that's the first thing you're gonna do in wildlife photography, is you're gonna do a crop. To get the bird in there, because you can't, it's harder to get very close to these guys. And then the other thing I do is I look at my histogram. It looks pretty good. Another thing I do is I see what the computer does. He's got a bigger brain than mine. What can he do? Not bad. Doesn't look too bad, right? Then sometimes too, I like to play around with these masks that they have. When they cooperate. Like on this guy, I didn't like the background. It's a little bit too light for me. And see how I did background on the mask, and it got some of the bird. So let's get rid of some of that stuff on the bird. And what I usually use is subtract object. See what it does. Cleaned them up pretty good. And we'll bring the background down a little bit. And what do you think? Do you think he looks a little bit bright? He might come down a little bit? You think he's too bright?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe? Okay. Then I'll make another little mask of him. Bring my highlights down. And then when I got him masked too, I give him a little bit of texture, a little bit of clarity. A little bit of vignette on him. I'd like to bring this down where I can see it. Make it a little bit smaller. Like that. And then another little thing I like to do with these guys. Go past Photo AI. And the same with this, sometimes I let the computer do the work. Remember I was talking earlier how this, these new software, this upscaling is unbelievable. Look what it did to his face. Oh, it's not coming up on this screen. Oops. It didn't come up on that screen. Yeah, now it's processing, but yeah, some of these processing software now, unbelievable.
What did you hit there?
This was Adobe, this is Topaz. You're not seeing it right now, because it's not being sure. What it did, it just upsized the image because it was cropped so much. It's just processing, it'll show up here.
Then it did the automatic, sharpening.
And that's the other thing, when you're playing with the Adobe Topaz Photo AI, a lot of times it'll go to sharpening. Don't just pick the sharpening that it picked. There's several levels of sharpening. And play around with those levels to see what it brings you. Because the one that the computer picks is way, way off. It's just way too strong.
Quirino, while that's working, I don't know if everybody knows this, but when you use those masks, and then he went in and cleaned it up by subtracting, the easiest way to get a really clean mask in Lightroom Classic is to select the subject or select a sky, and then there'll be some overlap. So then go in and say subtract the subject. And what it'll do is only subtract, it'll only show you the overlap area. So then you hit inverse and it's a perfect mask. So whatever you choose as the mask, whether it's sky or subject or whatever, subtract that mask, then invert it, and the selection is amazing. It's just a clever little trick I learned.
But that's just basic editing I do, like that. And then another one up. This was over at Washington Park. And here I like the color of the water, but I don't like having an extra duck in there. So it'll let me go to Adobe.
So when you're selecting the mask and then selecting the inverse, and then what was the?
So you select the subject, or let's say select the sky. And then you say subtract. And then select the sky again. And what it will do is like, it'll take the haze between like the mountains and the sky or whatever, the trees or whatever. And then it'll only show you the overlap. When you subtract the same thing that you selected. And then you inverse it, and then you've got a sky selection.
So you select the sky or whatever.
Yeah, select the sky, subtract the sky, inverse it, and boom.
Right, then inverse.
I don't know, it doesn't always work, but probably 90% of the time it does.
That's a good trick.
And then the same thing, like I said, you're gonna be cropping on these photos, a lot of these photos, or you'll have somebody in the way, like this one guy here. And what I do, I just get the lasso tool. Go around him.
Now, are you going, before you subtract it, do you go and try to correct anything or just go straight to correct? Time saver.
It is.
You're using, AI right now.
Yeah, I'm just using the generative fill. See, then it just takes it away. And basically that's it. Like I said, this guy, he looks pretty good too. I'll ask the computer what he thinks. Get a little vignette. And basically that's it. And then, like I said, then I would run it through photo AI, Topaz Photo AI again to see if it's blurry or if it needs to be cleared up. But pretty basic. There's not a whole lot to it. Any questions on editing? It's easy. It is easy. There's a lot of cropping. Any questions on anything else? All right, well, thank you for your time. Wow. I hope you guys learned something.
Yeah.
I hope you guys get out there.
Good job, Colonel.
Thank you.
Do you ever do much with the saturations or,
Sometimes,
yeah,
depends on the image.